Today we're interviewing Yasminda Dorrough, Director of Services at Rest, where she leads programs that support and empower survivors of the journey toward healing and independence. With over 20 years of experience in social work, Yas has dedicated her career to serving youth, women, and families in South Seattle. Her work has always centered around creating safe spaces, building trust, and helping individuals overcome challenges to truly thrive. At Rest, she plays a critical role in developing survivor-centered support systems, ensuring that every individual is met with compassion, dignity, and the sources they need to move forward. In this conversation, Yas will be sharing her journey into social work and the impact of her work on the community and powerful insights on resilience, empathy, and what it really means to support others. So go ahead and start by telling me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, your early life, and what keeps you busy.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. This is amazing. I'm excited. And I'm always ecstatic when I hear about young ladies who are interested in social work and giving back and the impact of social work. To get started, I grew up right here in Seattle. I'm originally from Biloxi, Mississippi. And I did some of my former years in Biloxi, Mississippi, but most of my growing up was here in Seattle. I grew up in the south end of Seattle, Rainier Beach area. And yeah, that's where I did middle school at Asa Mercer Middle School in Beacon Hill. And then my family moved to West Seattle, and I was so upset. I wanted to go to Franklin and Rainier Beach High School so bad. But lived out the rest of my years in West Seattle at Chief Sealth High School, where I loved it. God had a plan, and I loved Chief Sealth. Yeah, and I started at a very young age giving back. I started at the age of 16. At the age of 16, I started working for an organization called Young Life, and it was a young organization that did empowerment work for youth within the high schools. And I was an intern there, and I was interning my peers, honestly, but it was my first job of giving back.
Nice. And was there like a really defining moment in either your career or just growing up where you were like, this is what I want to do, like social work is kind of my thing?
Yeah, I would be lying to you if I said I always wanted to be a social worker because I did not. I did not. I I love fashion and I also love design, and so I had my head set on going to school to be a buyer, and I just knew I was going to live in New York and I was going to be a buyer for Macy's or for Saks or for one of those huge stores. And when I was in college, I was actually working for Macy's my freshman year in college. I stopped working for Macy's because I really need to focus on my books on the books because I started getting distracted, and so I stopped working at Macy's for fall and for fall, winter, and spring, and then in summer I was going to get a role in their advertisement, and I was super ecstatic. Something fell through, and I was unable to do it. And my best friend at the time was working as a youth worker at a local organization called the Seattle Union Gospel Mission, and they needed another youth leader. And at the time, the funniest thing is that I was not a fan of children at the time. I had to raise two younger brothers, and I just was like, yeah, once I get out the house, I don't want to do nothing with kids. And I ended up going to this job because it was the only job opportunity I had. And to answer your question, when that summer was the turning point for me. That summer was so amazing. And kids will always say, yes, you did such an impact on our lives. Honestly, that summer, the kids that I worked with, my very first summer at the Seattle Union Gospel Mission, had such a huge impact on my life. And it literally changed the trajectory of my life. And youth and social work was in my horizons from there on on.
Wow. So did you major in like anything social community related in college?
Yeah, so in college, I majored in nonprofit organizational management. And so that gave me, and that was later. That wasn't necessarily when my freshman year, I was going to school for advertising. So I wasn't, it was communications. So I wasn't necessarily focused on social services. And it wasn't until I got older and I went back to college is when I started doing nonprofit management.
Nice,
Mhm.
interesting. So, how did you getting out of college and then you working for some other nonprofits, how did you eventually end up at Rest and like what did your journey look like?
Yeah, so for many years I worked at Seattle Union Gospel Mission, and there I worked with middle school youth, and I worked with teen moms. I developed a program for teen moms when I was at the Seattle Union Gospel Mission for young girls who were houseless. And I really wanted to give them the opportunity to be able to focus on their future. So creating a shelter for young moms where they could come in, stay for a year, and focus on school and or a trade without having to worry about rent, without having to worry about food, without having to worry about any of those things, even childcare, without having to worry about those things. We'll walk alongside them so that they could really focus on their future and focus on things. Sometimes when you're a young mom, you miss out on some of the things that will set you up for a great future sometimes. And so for those young ladies who wanted the opportunity to do so, we offer that in that Teen Moms program. And so I did that, and then I also worked with moms and families coming out of recovery, which was a blessing as well. My story is my mother was a recovering addict herself, and so giving back in that way was very passionate for me. Being able to relate to kids who grew up in households where they had to live with parents who were suffering from addiction, and or relating to mothers and or families who had to suffer underneath addiction was a really big passion of mine. So it was an opportunity for me to work alongside those individuals, and that was amazing and extremely impactful for me. I started working at Rest as a side job. I started working in their shelter. They had an overnight shelter, and I started doing nights at their overnight shelter as a support staff. And my very first night there, I got to know some of the women that were staying there, and it was incredible. I think that throughout my journey, I just learned to really love people. When I was in high school and when I was freshman year in college, I was really focused on me and what I wanted and how I wanted to see myself in the future and things of that nature. But once I started working with the youth and started working with people, I really gained this love for people. And so my first job at Rest was working in the shelter, serving the women in the shelter at night. And then from there, I started working in as their supervisor, their pathway services, to manager, to deputy director, and now director of survivor services.
I love how passionate you are about it. It's really inspiring.
Oh, good. I always think it's one thing when you find something you love, you can always find something to do around that.
Yeah.
Always find something to encourage someone else in, and or the work you do can be encouraging to others if you find the one thing that you love. Sometimes it doesn't always happen right out of high school. Sometimes it don't happen in high school. But eventually you'll find your passion, you'll find your niche, and once you find it, you lock in, you love it, you'll rock with it for the
Yeah,
rest of life.
totally agree. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Mhm.
So now you're the director of Survivor, correct?
Services.
Services, Survivor Services. Um, what's your day-to-day job? Like, what does it look like? What do you do? And like, what do you manage?
Yeah, so I manage a lot of staff. I manage a lot of staff. So Rest has two departments that manage encompass, I would say, altogether six programs. So we have our emergency services department, and then we have our community services department. And under our emergency services department is our outreach team, our crisis response team, our emergency receiving center, which is our shelter. It's a 7 bed, 24-hour day shelter. Guests can stay there up to 90 days. And then we also have our transitional. We are launching, I should say, we are launching our transitional spaces. And so that is our emergency services. Oh, I'm sorry, and our 24 hour, 7 day a week hotline. And so that is one department. And then we have our community services department. And under community services department is our community advocates. So our advocates that walk alongside guests up to a year, and more if they need so, but just walking alongside them to assist them in anything that they identify as their goals. The idea is to walk alongside as the passenger while they're driving and just help them navigate through life and through life systems that they may have not had to navigate through before, so that they can meet their goals, whether that goal is getting housing, education, reunification with their children, things of that nature. That's what our advocates do. We also have a housing program where we help folks pay. We do anti-eviction services, so we really help folks pay back rent services or move-in costs to moving into homes, I should say. And so we do that. We do also have a program called TIPS, our Transition in Place program, where we help folks pay their rent up to 6 months, and we walk alongside them, giving them access to employment and navigation, like I said, navigating systems and assistance and things of that nature. We also have our aftercare program, and then we have our data entry program. So I oversee all those services in those two departments. And so day to
Nice.
day is a lot of decision making, and a lot of discussing with my supervisors and my managers on some critical things that happen throughout. I imagine, well, you can imagine that everything doesn't always go as planned. We are really good at putting things on paper, and we get excited when we want to see a program. And it's like, this program should look like this, and on paper it looks great. But when you put it in the hands of humans, it could change. So, a lot of decision making, a lot of changing, starting things, and then pivoting, but all great things for sure.
So I think as a nonprofit leader or any leader at all, you have to make tough decisions, whether you like them or not. What is not maybe not the toughest decision you've had to make, but what's one of the tough decisions you have to make day to day or ever?
Yeah, any decision that I have to make that has to do with someone's life. They're all tough decisions, right? Whether it's my staff's livelihood, rather we applied for a grant and our grant is running out and now we no longer have funds to help that staff. That deals with their life. Those are tough decisions. Those are decisions I really try my best to navigate through and try our best not to have those decisions. So we put systems in place so that we can serve our staff as best as possible. Decisions when I have to make, when I have to make decisions in regards to our clients' lives, whether that's who gets housing, who doesn't get housing, who do we assist with crisis, who can't we assist, who do we outsource. Those are really hard decisions as well. So any decision that I have to make where someone's livelihood could be at risk are really tough decisions for me.
And you mentioned grants a little bit before, and
Mhm.
I was talking to Elizabeth, and she was also mentioning how if there's not enough grants or you miscalculate the financials,
Mhm.
sometimes you're overspending and you are not actually making as much revenue.
Mhm.
What would you say is the most important aspect of financials in a business, and how important are they?
Yeah, I say for nonprofits, really, it's really important to, I would say, be 50-50, where you have 50% of your funds that are coming in from grants and then 50 of your funds are coming in from donors. And the reason why I say that is because when you have money that's coming in for grants, it's really restricted. And so they put out a release for proposal, which is an application of items that they want you to have or they want you to do with the funds that they're going to give you. And you have to put this application together saying that you are qualified to utilize those funds in said way. And so those are really restricted funds. And so whatever funds we get from that have to be specifically for the items that we wrote in that grant. When you have funds from donors, those funds can be spread across the organization and can really be spread to different positions, different items, things of that nature. And so if you have a balance between the two, then it makes it really comfortable for the organization to succeed is when you're higher in grants and lower in donors. So you have to stay really restricted, where it just becomes a little more difficult. And you have to get a little creative with making sure that you have resources that you need and that your staff have the resources they need. And so I say with one of the things that I'm learning, I should say, with finances when it comes to nonprofits is really being able to be 50-50 in your government grants, your grants period, and then with your donor base, and really getting to know your donor base as well, and really understanding your niche, and what your organization is good at, so that you can express that to donors, so that people can understand the passion behind the work and they can get involved with the passion of the work. The more people that are involved with the passion of the work, the more people want to give.
So you mentioned, keeping a 50-50 balance of donors and grants. How do you actually get donors, and like how do you like pitch well, I wouldn't say pitch. I think Rest is like a great mission and has great passion. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But even for regular businesses, is there any way that you talk to them about Rest's mission and kind of convince them to donate?
Yeah, so Rest had a donor. They had donors way before I came to Rest. So people loved, like you said, people love the mission of Rest before I got here. But when I do talk to donors, people want to connect with things that matter most. And if you're doing work that matters to folks, they will connect to it. So you just have to find your people that connect to the things that you're doing. Everybody's not going to be okay with assisting. You would think everybody would be okay with assisting folks that is sex trafficking, but unfortunately, everyone isn't. And so the folks who are interested in it, obviously, they understand the passion behind it. You get to tell them about the stories of survivors. You get to express to them about the work that your team is doing and the work that your advocates are doing, or the people that are on your team, and the work in the stories of the survivors, and how they're coming from being trafficked to going into shelter to now gaining their education, and now being CNNs and or CNAs, I'm sorry, and now having their own places for their first time. Like, you get to hear these stories, and I think that people really resonate with those stories, and it makes them want to be able to say, okay, what is it that I can do to assist as well? I may not be able to work with you all. I may not be able to come in and do volunteer work and things of that nature, but I can give. And so once you get to those folks really want to resonate with your story. They really have a niche for giving. There's also a group that can't give, or can't give financially, but give passionately through volunteering, and we love our volunteers. Our volunteers make our business go round. People that give their time, give their skills, give their talents to assist clients, it's absolutely amazing. So either way it goes, whether you're donating funds or you're donating your time, I think it's just getting to the people who really enjoy the mission of your work. And if you can get in front of those folks and really give them and just a small glimpse of what the organization goes through and what your clients go through and your staff go through, I think you can will them in.
I think that's a great piece of advice. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think on that note, Rest is great, the mission is amazing, but I think there are mixed opinions on, like traffic survivors and stuff. And what is something about your work that some people don't fully understand that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things for me, and I didn't fully understand this before I started working at Rest either, is that sex trafficking isn't necessarily it's not a community, like a specific community thing. It's not a class thing, and it's not a color thing. Sex trafficking happens everywhere. And I think that one thing that is misleading is that people think that sex trafficking is happening over there, or it's happening across seas, and that is not true. It's happening in your backyard. It's happening in our schools, as you hear. I don't know if you know, but in Seattle Public Schools, we've had many of stories come out where teachers are grooming young girls and young boys, things of that nature. That's how it starts. So it's happening here underneath our noses. It's happening in our churches. It happens all around us. And I think people don't understand that. It happens in Bellevue. It happens in South Seattle. It happens on Aurora. It happens all everywhere. And so I think awareness of it and being able to have conversations with folks really opens people's eyes to understanding the needs of sex, of the needs of training and awareness of sex trafficking for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Great piece of advice again.
The other
Uh,
thing too that I
uh-huh.
would love to say about sex trafficking is that sex trafficking is one thing, and then people who are for pro sex work is another, which is completely okay. I am completely okay if that is what you choose to do. That is completely okay. But those who are trafficked against their will don't have a choice. And so I think that is something that people need to understand as well, is that those who are trafficked have absolutely no choice. Whether they were a child or an adult, they had no choice in the matter. And so helping those who had no choice is what we do.
Yes. And on that kind of note of nonprofit leadership,
hmm
what are some characteristics of a good nonprofit leader that you apply every day to day, and also, creates a good environment in your culture and in your
Yeah,
company?
I'll speak for me. um, I think being humble, truly
Mm-hmm.
being humble, truly listening to your team, um, truly ensuring that you're transparent and opening the table for more than just your voice. I think Rest does very well because we offer our table to all who implement into whatever program or services we're working in. And that means all from my staff to our clients. We ask our clients questions before we implement programs. We ask our clients their advice on things because the work is for them, it's not for us. And they have the best expertise and the best knowledge of what they need more than we do. And then my staff are experiencing the work hands on. They're on the ground all day. So I'm always lifting up their voices and always asking their opinions when it comes to services, programs, projects, things of that nature. And making sure that we hear their voices and we actually implement their voices. And knowing when to say yes and knowing when you have to say no. And being able to explain that clearly and adequately to folks has been helpful for me.
Nice. And how do you manage your finances specifically? I kind of want to go back on that because I just think finances are so important in business because
Yeah.
like it can really make or break, a nonprofit space or any kind of business at all. Do you know how you manage your finances?
Yes, so I can tell you how programs, so we have a finance director who
Hmm.
could give you a lot more information on that than I could. Than I could. But so I oversee the budget for our survivor services department. And I break down that budget equally between the supervisors and their programs, and then whatever funds they need under them. And then we do monthly meetings to go over our finances, and we also do weekly check-ins with my staff one-on-ones, as along with grant requirements, ensuring that we're spending funds down, inquiring that we're not overspending, ensuring that we're not overspending is what I meant to say, and things of that nature. So from a program standpoint, we have a budget that we delegate to our supervisors, and then we go over it monthly as well as weekly with them. And but as a organizational, I have no idea. That would be the director of finances. She will be able to give you a better sense on what that looks like. I am program minded. Give me a budget, I stay in it, and that's what I do.
Well, at least I know now that I just have to, you have to be organized with your
Yes.
budget, have those weekly meetings, and
Yeah.
go over it to make sure you're not overspending. Right?
Yeah. Very true. Very true. We have systems in place as well. We have accounting systems in place. We also have bookkeeping systems in place where we have to turn in our receipts and we have to show checks and balances that happen with our finances and with our funds. So our finance team has done a pretty good job tracking it and making sure that we stay on par.
Okay, so last kind of question slash advice if you could go back to high school right now and
Mhm.
just think about what you could have done to get more business experience, maybe more nonprofit leadership experience, something that would have really helped you in the future, and some kind of advice for high schoolers currently, what would you say?
I would say take advantage of your career center. Take advantage of your career center if you have extra time, if you have a career center teacher that you really enjoy, really pick their brains. And I would say sit down with your career center advisor and really walk through what it is that you're dreaming of doing so that you can walk through the steps and who you need to get connected with. Um, Networking is huge. And I know it can be kind of scary as high schoolers to be like, oh, I'm going to go, I want to be an accountant. So I'm going to go to this accountant and ask if I can be an intern here. But you never know who says yes, right? And so really finding your niche, finding your passion, and then finding the people who do that work and ask questions. Ask tons of questions. Find someone who does not mind answering questions and ask tons. Ask the ups and the downs. You want to ask. I know we get excited and we want to know about all the glory for whatever it is that we want, but ask the downs too. Ask what are some of the issues, what were some of the challenges to getting into that position and getting into that role, getting into that field. And you can balance out whether that field is for you or not. So off of some of those questions, but I think really becoming inquisitive and really asking questions in regards to what you want to do in your future. Your future is yours. You get to choose what it looks like. You get to choose what you do. You get to choose whether it's something that you do automatically because you feel like your mom and your father said you had to do it. I was going to be a My mother was like, "You're gonna be a lawyer," and I was like, "Sure." Until my freshman year in high school, and I was like, "I'm gonna be a buyer. I'm not gonna be a lawyer." And then it ended up being in social work. But you get to choose what happens within the next couple of years. This is your opportunity to really sit with somebody and pick their brain about it. I say do so. Internships, summer internships. I know a lot of people like getting summer jobs, but if you can find a summer internship in the field that you like, that networking, those relationships will go a long way. My daughter is actually in college right now. She's a senior in college right now, and she is going to medical school right after. In the networking that she's made, she's done internships throughout the summers at medical schools. So at University of Washington, and at a couple of facilities in Memphis where she goes to school. And the networking and the doctors that she met are going to be lifetime friends of hers, and they're going to be lifetime mentors for her. And they're going to walk her through her next. She has a lot. She has a long way to go. She wants to be a surgeon, so they're gonna walk her through her next couple of years. I can't do it. I haven't been a surgeon before, but they can. And so I think really networking while you can, coming out of the shy bubble if you can, and really finding your niche and then networking within it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think networking is so important because it just helps when you don't feel like you have another option. It can help when you need something, like for example, I reaching out to internships even if you don't even know them at all, like just emailing, going on a website and just getting their email and emailing, and even if they reply a month later, it's okay because you've still got that connection now, and now you can meet with them and get that resume experience that you've been wanting.
That resume experience and any letter of recommendation you need. Now you have someone to write you a letter of recommendation for college, for your next job. You have letters of recommendation coming out the woodwork. The more networking you do, the more letters of recommendation you can have. And you're going to need letters of recommendation.
Yeah. So stay connected and keep networking.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been really amazing. Thank you so much.